Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with Sunday's Race of the Day at DRF.com. The Race of the Day, we're going out to California on Sunday. The race number 9 at Santa Anita Park. They're going to close out their card with Grade 3 action, the Wilshire Stakes for three and up fillies and mares. They're going 1 mile on the turf for a $100,000 purse, and we actually have a pretty big field for this race. They got 11 to enter. No real qualified graded stakes horses in here to this point. There is one prior graded stakes winner in the field who we'll get to in a minute, but the rest of them looking for their very first graded stakes score in this race, the Grade 3 Wilshire. Quick reminder before we get into handicapping this race, as usual, free Formulator past performances are available for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Let's get the field up there now. Big field of 11. Again, there's not really any kind of real standout when you start going through these horses on paper. Very lukewarm morning line favorite in number 2, Javaneca, down towards the inside. A filly who does, have a little bit of speed. I feel like she's going to get a good trip from that inside post. She's never won a stakes race so far in her career. She has placed in 6 different stakes races along the way, including her most recent start, but she hasn't gotten to the wire first yet in one of these races. Maybe this is the day. The mile feels like a good distance for her. And as I already mentioned, she could get a good trip in here because she has the right kind of running style. Let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector to see what we're talking about here a little bit, because Pace Projector doesn't really find that much speed in this race, and it's hard to disagree with that when you start going through these horses. They have the number 4 Quiet Secretary, a 20-to-1 shot on the morning line, out there on the early lead in a race that is projected to favor horses on or near the front. So we'll see if Quiet Secretary can take advantage of that kind of a flow in this race. Quiet Secretary's most recent start, she was on the lead, going 1.25 miles in the Santa Ana back at the end of March. She was on a clear early lead there, even going 1.25 miles in that race. They were not rating it on the front end. She opened up a big lead. Her rivals all came for her around the final turn, and she was no match. They left her behind. She finished last in that race. Cutting back in distance probably helps her. That's her running style, though. She wants to be out there on the front. She ran in the Wilshire last year as well. Could not make the lead that day and finished 7th of 8. She's one of those horses who's never won a stakes race, but she does want to be forward in her races. She has won 4 prior times in her life on the turf, 3 of those races in wire-to-wire fashion. The other one she sat right up close before going out to win it. So, being up close to the pace is certainly key for her. We'll see if she can take advantage of it. Number 9, Eddie's New Dream, is also projected to be up close in this race. Eddie's New Dream is stretching out off of a couple of 6.5 furlong races down the hill at Santa Anita, including a narrow win in the Irish O'Brien Stakes most recently. So that horse can certainly get forward and be part of this pace. Let's take a look at this field really quickly in post position order. Amy C's number 1. This is a horse transferring out to Phil D'Amato from Chad Brown's barn. She made 3 starts in New York last summer for Chad Brown after arriving from France. Won her stateside debut in an allowance race. Tried her in a couple of stakes races after that. She was really no match. We'll see if she can, take a big step forward here off the layoff as a new 4-year-old with the trainer change. All those things certainly possible. This isn't the toughest field in the world, but I do think she has to improve. I wasn't really thrilled with what I saw from her in New York last year, and just seeing her at 6-to-1 on the morning line, I have no interest in her. Javaneca is the number 2. We already talked about her a little bit. She could get a good trip in this race. She's already, again, placed in 6 different stakes races in her career without winning any of them. And that includes her most recent start, the Royal Heroine. I don't really know what to say about that race. It's a Grade 2, off of a little bit of a layoff there. She got to the front on a very slow pace. It was only a 4-horse field. She certainly had all the best of it there. The problem with trying to be too hard on her for not actually winning that race is the horse that beat her was Going Global, who was 1-5 and is just a way better horse than Javaneca, whether Javaneca had a pace advantage or not. So it really probably wasn't a race that she was supposed to win anyway. That being said, She hasn't never really taken a huge step forward from 2 to 3 or to 4. 3 of her last 4 starts on the turf, she's earned 87 buyer speed figures. That seems to be what she is. No matter what kind of trip she gets. She's a contender in here for sure. Another horse at a short price that I didn't love. Number 3 is Canoodling. This is the only prior graded stakes winner in this field. This is a filly who switched to turf 2 starts back. They ran her in the Grade 1 La Brea on dirt in her first start for trainer Mike Pipey. Then Pipey switched her over to the turf, and she pulled off a pretty big upset going wire to wire in the megahertz. I assume they'll try to go back to those those tactics in here, the front running tactics in this race, because in her next start, the Buena Vista, she was an even bigger price, 48 to 1. But she broke through the gate at the start. They reloaded her. And when she broke the gate with the field the next time, they just took her right back out of that race, rated her far off the pace. She actually rallied past some horses, made up ground at every point of call, and finished 5th, beaten 3 lengths. Not a bad performance. It feels like she is in good form right now. I do feel like they'll probably, assuming everything goes according to plan this time, they'll probably go more forward with her, and that could work in this race. So there are things to like about her. I guess the biggest problem that I would have with her is, as I've already mentioned, she was 22 to 1 when she won the megahertz. She was nearly 50 to 1 last time, and she'll probably be one of the favorites in here, so that doesn't thrill me, but I guess she could win. Number 4 is Quiet Secretary, a 4-time winner on the turf. She has graded stakes form. We already talked about her as a potential pace player in here. It does feel like they just have to put her on the lead and see what happens. I do think cutting back from the 1.25 mile race last time, it's probably going to help her, but she didn't run well in that race. And it's hard to get excited about, maybe necessarily any one of her other races. She's dangerous if she makes the lead in here, and they don't really make her go up the backstretch. Other than that, I didn't love this horse, but she's 20 to 1 on the line, and she could certainly wire this field. The number 5 is an interesting runner here, Keyflower. She's not a graded stakes winner, but she was a stakes winner in France prior to shipping over here at the end of last year. Her stateside, or North American debut anyway, came in the Grade 1 EP Taylor up at Woodbine last October, going 1.25 miles. Listen, she was a big price in that race and was beaten less than 2 lengths. She really had no chance in there. It says Dream Rail Trip. I guess true enough, she got to save a lot of ground. They were absolutely crawling on the lead in there, though. The pace was really slow, and she was towards the back of that pack. I actually didn't feel like she ran that poorly in there. Her next start, they transferred her to trainer Leonard Powell. She came off of a layoff in mid-February here at Santa Anita. We're going to take a look at that race right now. An allowance going this 1 mile distance over this turf course. And I thought Keyflower ran really well in here. Rated right from the start, saved a little bit of ground early, back off the pace, and then Flavien Prat got her out into the clear up the backstretch. She was after the leaders, 3 wide around the final turn, and as you can see through the stretch, just driving down the outside, gamely taking over, and then getting clear on that field, always holding on to the finish. I thought she ran well in there with a pretty good trip. In her next start, Powell decided to stretch her out and try the Santa Ana, a Grade 3. I don't know. She ran okay in that race. The biggest problem she had in there was that she just didn't break that sharply from the gate. You see that she wound up finishing 5th in there, just beating a couple of lengths. But man, she was really in contention in that race, right down into deep stretch. She didn't see out that distance that well, I don't think. And in the very late stages, got out finished for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. But she was right there in the mix for at least 2nd in the deep stretch. I feel like the distance of that race maybe worked against her, and I do like her cutting back to a mile in this spot. I think she's a major player in this race. Number 7, Stella Noir. Listen, a recent convert over to turf just at the beginning of this year for Keith DeSormo, and she's run fine in her 3 turf starts so far. A win down the hill right off of the layoff back in January, then 2nd in her next start to Wishing Well, also down the hill. They stretched her out to 9 furlongs last time. And she just kind of went evenly behind Park Avenue for 3rd. I thought she ran okay in that race. She's another one who could be close to the pace in here. She might have a little bit more improvement in her. She's a good price on the morning line. All those things are positives. Number 8, Carpe Venom. I don't know. This horse to me has, sort of already attained a little bit of a level, and I don't think it's a level that makes me feel like she's going to wind up winning this race. She also might not have the best running style. There are races in her on her card where she's been up close to the pace, but Recently, anyway, those races have come going longer when they stretched her out in distances. She's a little closer to the pace. It hasn't necessarily been the case recently. She just cut back to a mile in her most recent start and missed by a nose. And she ran well that day, but she also just sort of ran the same kind of race that she's been running right along. She didn't really improve in there. And I just kind of feel like she has to improve if she's going to become a graded stakes winner on Sunday. Number 9 is Eddie's New Dream, who we mentioned could be close to the pace in here because her 2 most recent starts came down the hill sprinting. Now they're going to stretch her back out to a mile. She's been a distance of ground before, though, and it feels like stretching out could really work for this filly. She won a 9 furlong Calbred allowance race last October, came back 2 starts later in November and won at a mile and a 16th in an open allowance optional claimer. So the distance is no problem for her. She came through with a pretty nice effort to get up last time just by a nose in the Irish O'Brien, and now they'll stretch her back out in distance. Plenty of things to like for her. And she's another one, again, not a slow horse, really. She could be up close to the pace, so she makes some sense. Number 10, Mr. Karras. I'm a fan of this horse. They started her out sprinting, and she actually looked really good. Somehow went off a big price in her career debut at Aqueduct, but ran really well in winning that race, and then came back and ran okay in a couple of more turns. They sort of kept her sprinting from her debut all the way up through the summer of last year. And then they finally stretched her out. The first time they stretched her out was at Monmouth Park last August, and she ran well in that race. She showed speed to get up close to the pace early, took over when it was time to do that, and just ran away from that field. I thought that was a really nice performance. Came back in her next start at Belmont Park over a turf course with a little give in it. And it was just a really slow-paced race. I actually felt like she ran pretty well in there because they just took her in hand from the start of that race, and they didn't really have to. The pace got really slow in front of her, and then she just got up for second at the end. I thought that was an underrated performance. Her next 2 starts in stakes races, and when they stretched her back out for the Winter Memories in November, she ran well again in a race where Plum Ali wired the field, and this horse got up for a close third at the end. So I think she's a player in this race. She doesn't have to be far away from the pace. And I do think she's a little underrated with room to improve. I like all those things about Mr. Karras, and I could use her in this race. Number 11 is England's Rose. In some ways, I want to say that England's Rose is the horse to beat in here. She's 6-1 on the morning line. I think she's really consistent. And she's a horse who won at a mile and 1/8 and a mile and 3/8. And the more I watch her run, the more I feel like those longer distances really work for her. When I watch her run, I just see a horse who really stays a distance of ground. That being said, they cut her back in the swing time to a mile last October after she won an 11 furlong race the month before that. And she ran really well, and she won the swing time from off the pace. And she was still going strong through the wire of that race. So there is precedence for her to get this mile. I don't love her running style for this kind of race if they're going to go slow in front of her. And, I still kind of feel like she wants longer than this. But I do think she's talented and, maybe just talented enough to overcome whatever tactical disadvantage she may have here. So I think England's Rose is really dangerous, and I want to use her. If she's around that morning line, especially she's 6-1, I wouldn't argue with her. I sort of felt like in some ways she was the horse to beat and might get bet stronger than that. But if she doesn't, I would definitely keep her in mind. As far as the picks go, I didn't put that horse on top because I'm worried about the shorter trip, and I went with the number 5, Keyflower. I think the mile is the right distance for her. We saw the replay of her win over course and distance 2 starts back. And I just feel like if she can take one more step forward as she cuts back now out of a 1.25 mile race, I think she can contend here and get the right kind of trip as well in here. So I'm going to take Keyflower on top. I went 5, 10, 11 in the Sunday race of the day. It's the Grade 3 Wilshire out at Santa Anita. It's race number 9, and it's a really good, interesting race, a wide open, big field to close out that Sunday card, the Grade 3 Wilshire. Approximate post time, 8:13 Eastern, 5:13 Pacific. Good luck.